Nasruddin Abdirashid and Mohammed Abdullahi from University of Nairobi, alongside Grace Kinyua from USIU Africa, have battled in the past 3 episodes of the Debate Icon series.
If we give forgiveness before we insist on truth and justice, we will not see any change.
Don't you think that the charging of those police officers is an admission of guilt?
Panel, opposition completely misses the point in this debate.
Now to the finals is Grace Kinyua versus Nasruddin Abdirashid. They shall be engaging the motion, "This House will not punish those who live below the poverty line for economic crimes, for example, theft."
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this final round of Debate Icon series. On our proposer's side, we have Nasruddin. On our opposer's side, we have Grace. I now wish to welcome our first proposer to come and make your case. Here.
Thank you, panel. I'm Nasruddin Abdirashid, proposing the motion that this House will not punish those who live below the poverty line for economic crimes, for example, theft. First of all, a couple of definitions. Poverty line, we are taking the IMF definition of living below $2 a day. Also, economic crimes. These are crimes that have money as a key element, either the acquisition of money or property illegally. Also, we are classifying these crimes as non-violent economic crimes, which means that if there is any form of robbery, we are not classifying, and there shall be no and we shall punish those crimes with violence. For example, robbery with violence. Anyway, with that out of the way, why do this? Why decide not to punish those who live in poverty when they commit these simple economic crimes? First of all, let me get something out of the way. Lack of punishment does not mean restitution. Does not mean that the person whose money, for example, was stolen will not get it back. We just mean that the person who stole, if this person lives below the poverty line, then we shall not punish that person, for example, by sending them to jail, as usually happens. So, why are we doing this? First of all, let us speak on a cost basis as a society. How much does it take to jail all these people? Remember, most people in jail are not there because of violent crimes. Simple crimes usually simple criminals are usually the people filling up the jails. For example, if we look at the benefit of punishing a person who has, for example, stolen a loaf of bread, the benefit, and we compare it to the cost of jailing this person, is that beneficial to the society? I beg to differ. In fact, I propose that we, as a society, we will lose more if we punish this person than if we simply took whatever he stole back and left him to his own devices. Let me give you an example. When coronavirus started, what did governments across the world do? They immediately opened up the gates of their prisons and let these people who committed, for example, theft out, because we as a society recognize that yes, it is a crime, but we should not punish it harshly. So let us take it a step further and say, let us not punish them at all. Let us take that psychology out, that we need punishment, this sense of revenge. So, point number 1 on cost. Let us move on. Let's go to the point of morality. We all know this moral conundrum. Is it moral to punish a starving man who stole a loaf of bread? We argue no. Why? Because had he not stolen, for example, he would have died. So, again, on a cost-benefit assessment, is it better to have a dead person or somebody who's missing a loaf of bread? I will take you later on. Let us remember, poverty is not a choice. Nobody chose to be poor. Let us also remember that starving, for example, is not a choice. Nobody chose that. So why should we punish somebody for doing something that is primal, that is to feed themselves when they have not been able to find livelihood? And remember, in most countries across the world, there are no welfare programs. So there is nothing from the state to support these people when they're in poverty. Yet, when they try and survive, the first thing we do is we punish them. Is this morally correct? Let us go to my third point of the basis of law. There is a defense in law called the defense of necessity. And this I link to the example of the starving man. It was necessary for him to do this act, for him to survive. And on that basis, we should not punish these people. And this is a precedent in law. On to my fourth point, recidivism. This is an issue where if somebody goes to jail, even for the least amount of crime or the smallest of crimes, his chances of coming back to prison later on go up astronomically. Why? Because if somebody gets jailed and they have that criminal record, who will hire them? Nobody. They will lack jobs or employment even when it comes. And then what will they do? They will have to go back to crime. And then back the cycle moves on. When this happens, the fifth point and final point comes in, the cycle of poverty. Because they cannot get a job to feed themselves, they go to prison. When they get out, they cannot go and get a job because they have a record. And then what happens? It keeps going on and on and on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our proposer. We now want to welcome our opposer to come and make your case. Here.
Panel, allow me to highlight the key problems in this debate. First of all, that there are economic crimes happening in our society. Secondly, that there are people living under the poverty line. Those are the two problems in this particular debate. The action that this motion suggests is A, that we should either A, punish or not punish this particular people, and this action is supposed to either solve the problem or ease or make the burden easier on the state and on all other persons there. So allow me to first of all introduce you to what the implications of actually going ahead with this action and how that has a negative effect and why we should not actually go on with this particular motion in this state. So first of all, what is the responsibility of the state? It is to protect and to provide. Therefore, if you have people who are living under the poverty line, it means that they don't have enough within their means. Therefore, they don't have that aspect of being provided for. Secondly, when we talk about economic crimes, it means that there are people whose property is not being protected. So therefore, the state fails in that particular way. And the action here would be, how do we rectify these two particular problems? And you offer the idea of not punishing these criminals. But the thing here is, how do people get poor? How does poverty even begin? It is a systemic thing owing to structural violence. Why are some people not poor? It is because owing to access to privileges such as education, such as healthcare, such as access to information and things of that nature, such as access to jobs. Therefore, the problem in this house today is not that people are poor. The question is, why are they poor? And who is supposed to solve that particular problem? And we offer to you today that if we actually do this in this house, we go further to omit another responsibility of the government, which is to actually provide and to protect. Because what you say is, instead of holding the government to book, you account or you try and instead of holding the governments to book, what you do is instead that you try and find a way to go around the problem and say, we shall not hold you to your task and your responsibility, but what we shall do, we shall allow people to steal because they are poor, and we shall not protect people because you cannot do this particular thing. Secondly, what it does is that it normalizes crime within societies and you offer a good point concerning recidivism, and we offer to you that even though there are high rates of people who have been punished for smaller crimes having high recidivism rates, they are even higher when there is no form of deterrence for these particular crimes, because surely if then I will not be punished for these particular crimes owing to the fact that I live below the poverty line, then that's perfectly fine. Therefore, we experience even higher rates of recidivism in this particular thing. And again, we offer to you that crime, goodness or badness, is not inherent. And therefore, this defense of necessity completely fails in this particular point, because what we would see then is that all people who are living below the poverty line would then be stealing, and we would say this is a thing that they do owing to necessity, but they don't. We do have exceptions, and the exceptions are the ones who actually go to this particular means. The larger community are the ones that try and find ways to circumvent what the government has failed to do for them. Therefore, what we offer to you is that this is actually normalization of crime and saying that people are inherently evil or people are inherently inclined to crime owing to the fact that they lack certain things, and this particularly falls in this debate. And then we ask you, even if we take you at your best and say, suppose we don't punish them, does it solve the problem of A, poverty? Does it solve the problem of B, the fact that there is economic crimes happening? And then to come to your arguments, you offer to us the fact that what is the cost of jailing? And we offer to you, and we offer the idea of a loaf of bread and things of that nature. But here's the thing, this idea of people who have stolen loaves of bread or even who have stolen chicken, they are jailed in this particular way because of a failure in the justice system. The justice system allows for fines for such petty crimes, but the failure is in the implementation. It is not the fact that the system is flawed, but it is the implementation is actually flawed. You offer again the idea of morality, and we offer to you the reason why we do not use morality as a way to measure things is because governments are supposed to be objective, and we do actually have laws that govern the state. Therefore, no, we do not need mine or your morality to govern, to detect who then was actually right to steal a loaf of bread or who was not supposed to steal a loaf of bread. To continue, talk about poverty not being a choice and the cycle of poverty. We completely agree with you on this particular thing, and poverty should not be criminalized. That is not the point of this house today. The question is, how do we solve the problem? Because there is poverty. We acknowledge this with you, and that's perfectly fine. But the solution is not to allow for ways to circumvent a cycle of poverty. The solution would be to punish these particular people because they're doing the wrong thing, and to hold governments accountable for their actions, to provide and to protect. You talk about these persons actually getting back their goods. How exactly do they get back their goods after they have been stolen by someone who's not being punished by the law? Thank you for your time.
We thank you very much for the first round of the debate. We now want to welcome our reply speeches. May the first proposer come and make your case. Here.
First of all, the opposition states that the role of the government is to protect and to provide. We don't argue with that. But we live in the real world where majority of the countries are developing countries that cannot provide for their poor people. So what do? Wait for that fantasy land when we will finally be developed enough then to start implementing this. Also, even the richest of countries like United States still have millions of people under the poverty line. For example, in the United States, 40 million people live in what the United States government considers as poverty standards. Also, she spoke of, well, what is the deterrence to crime? Had she listened to what the proposition's first speech, she will have heard that there will be restitution, which means if you stole the chicken, the police will not just say, oh, that's a poor person, let us go and let us not catch him or her. They will catch you because you stole, but they will take the chicken, but they will not take you to jail. That is what we are talking about. That is the punishment. Police catching you and so that they can take the property you stole away is not punishment. Punishment is sending somebody to jail. So the fact that you cannot enjoy the fruits of the theft is already deterrence enough. What is the point of stealing if the police are going to take it away anyway? The only thing that we add as the proposition is that you shall not go to jail for this crime if you live under the poverty line. Also, to continue, does it solve the problem of poverty? It does, because she said that poverty is systemic. It does solve one aspect of poverty, the fact that poor people are more likely to go to jail and then end up in the recidivism cycle, and then that continues on the cycle of poverty. It will solve that. However, no proposals have come from the opposition to solve poverty. Anyway, she said that we can also have things like fines, which is really a good idea, except these are people who live under the poverty line. So how will they ever pay these fines? Thank you.
Thank you very much to our proposer. We now want to welcome our opposer to come and make your reply speech. Here.
Panel, proposition would like you to assume certain things. When you're caught, the things are taken. So this is assuming, first of all, the police will always find you, all right? And then assuming that they find you, the police always follow the law. And assuming that they follow the law, that they take away your chicken today, doesn't that even make you more hungry to get the chicken tomorrow, and really not keep doing it until you actually attain it? Because what they're doing is they're taking away whatever you've acquired. Therefore, this argument of things being given back to the owner is completely false in this house today. And then you offer the idea of, does it solve the problem of poverty? And you talk about systemic violence and all of these things. Nothing about if I take something from you, nothing about that solves the systemic violence that is there. Systemic violence does not appear from nowhere. It is in institutions, it is in policies, it is in education policies, in health policies, things of that nature. Therefore, the person who solves systemic violence, and this is not a utopian thing, this is not a grand ask, this is not a thing that we want governments from heaven to do, this is a thing that governments can do, this is a thing that governments have done, which is why we have particular neighborhoods, particular counties in this country, in many other countries that are actually developed. This is because it is well thought out and it is well planned out. Therefore, if governments can do this, surely they can well again think out and even plan out for other areas, that which actually ends systemic violence. But if you do not punish these particular people, talk about the rates of recidivism again, which you bring up, what it does is that it says, we'll just take away your things. Therefore, does that hurt them enough to make them not do this thing again? And we offer to you that states are responsible for this particular problem of solving the systemic poverty the cycle of poverty that is there. Secondly, we should not normalize crime in any way, because crime is not inherent, it is a choice. Therefore, persons should be held accountable to their choice, not based on morality, but based on the law of the land, which we all follow and have all agreed to as citizens of different countries that we belong to. And again, we offer to you that if then we have structural violence, then it should be solved by governments, it should be put in place by policies, structures, and systems. Thank you for your time.